Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. It is Sunday the 30th of November. Our town was hit with a storm the day before yesterday and we had more rain yesterday afternoon. But today the sun is out full blast and it is so warm and the humidity is so high that just walking out to the apricot tree I planted yesterday was indeed a mission. Coming in, my legs all the way from my buttocks down to my feet had that painful, lame feeling, typical for summer. I took a handful of vitamins just to try and stay awake, so we'll see whether it works. The auto mechanic was here yesterday, the water pump, the thermostat, and some of the pipes need to be replaced. As my car is old, it takes a day or two to get the parts, so I have no idea how much it will be or how long it will take. I'll only know that on Monday because obviously he was here on Saturday and by the time he left, most of the spare part places were closed. But what he did do was he put a new rubber pipe to the radiator, that one that burst. So at least we can drive very slowly, short distances until the parts arrive. And then obviously he hasn't taken the engine apart, he hasn't gone through it properly, so that is just preliminary. Anyway, we also went and packed up our first 4-day market for December yesterday, and sadly it did not go as well as the winter market or last year's Christmas market at the same place. We usually, as I say, do very well at this market, but not this year. It was likely due to the storm on Friday afternoon and the fact that it was Black Friday this Friday. So everyone rushed to the shopping centres. Now the next market is slap bang in the middle of town and it will start on Monday and last all week until next Saturday afternoon. I indeed still have some stuff to finish to replace the 3 items I sold during the NG North market. Yeah, I need to replace all 3. Anyway, somewhere I sinned again and it's time for my biannual punishment, it appears. Anyway, friends and frenemies, let's continue and let's look at something positive first, shall we? In the past week, William hosted and presented his Prince William Award for Conservation in Africa at the Tusk Awards on the 26th of November. I always find it a little strange that Catherine does not accompany William to the Tusk Awards, but for some reason she just doesn't. I have a feeling that Catherine has learned through Diana and Meghan to allow William to take centre stage during his personal sort of initiatives. We could all see how the resentment grew between Diana and Charles over the years as all eyes were on her and everyone were calling out to her. Remember Charles's remarks, namely that he should have 2 wives, one for each side of the road, and how Meghan is always criticised for taking centre stage at Harry's events like Invictus. So yes, I think Catherine is both clever and strategic, but yes, we also can't help wanting to see her. William did have family there though. The Spencer twins attended, as they seem to almost every year, as did Mike and Zara Tyndall. The Prince William Award went to Kumara Wakira of Ethiopia, Director General of the Ethiopian Wildlife Conservation Authority. Kamara Wakira has dedicated his life to conservation for more than 30 years. A very well-deserved award. The next day, Catherine visited the Anna Freud Mental Health Charity in London to discuss the role of relationships in shaping children's future. The event was also to cement the new tie-in with Catherine's Centre for Early Childhood. The joint project will boost the skills of health visitors. Those are the teams who support women in the days and weeks after childbirth in the United Kingdom. So, from good, solid, to near brilliant work, to not such good news, not such good and positive narrative. But it needs to be done. Okay, so, like I said, from good to almost great to the not so good at all. I've been truly battling to find an answer to a question I have, namely, can Charles dissolve Parliament on his own? Now, some websites and articles say, no, he cannot. The Prime Minister has to request him to do so. And then there are others who says, yes, he can. It appears that the truth is that, yes, he can, but the reality is whether he should. In modern monarchies and politics, and the general rule of thumb is that the monarch does not get involved in party politics. And firstly, that is exactly what it will be if Charles should call on ancient laws and loopholes in current ones and dissolve Parliament without the request from Parliament or the Prime Minister to do so. So let's quickly have a look as to why I came to this conclusion. The United Kingdom is, constitutionally speaking, a semi-constitutional monarchy, but in practice is a parliamentary democracy with a ceremonial monarch. The royal prerogative, however, does exist and hasn't changed much in hundreds of years. And the royal prerogative, in simple terms, means that the monarch can basically take the law into his or her own hands. Okay? More or less. I can't be bothered right now to get too much into the finer details and prerogatives of this. Okay? Maybe on another day. It is quite hefty reading. I didn't expect it to be the case, but it is. Because there are always buts, and in this case, and if that happens, and so on. And in any event, I'm off duty and don't feel like giving anybody, including myself, a history lesson, okay? Anyway, the royal prerogative is there as the final defense for or in times of a constitutional crisis or a coup d'etat, etc. The long and short of it is that if the monarch chooses to exercise his right to dissolve Parliament without it being requested by Parliament, he better be darn sure that there is a total lack of faith in the government and that an overwhelming majority of the people want him to do so. If so, all may be well, but if it is not the case, then it could simply be far, far too risky. The last king who basically did this was Charles I, and he caused a civil war because of it and lost his own head as a result of it. It is an extremely difficult position to be in and a very, very risky move. Although Charles may not lose his head these days, the next government could very well decide to hold a referendum and vote for the abolishment of the monarchy. Then, on the other hand, we have to always remember that Charles as monarch has an agreement, an oath, and a contract of sorts with the citizens of Britain, the very people whom he rules over. But he also has agreements and contracts with Parliament. And it is thus the duty of all sides to hold up their end of the bargain or contract. And if only one side, be it the public, be it Parliament, or be it the monarchy, is out of step, it could create a huge crisis, and either the government will be forced to step down, or the monarch will be deposed, or in a very unlikely scenario, both. There are, however, another way, or other ways, more than one, which had been used before. In 1910, the Liberal Party won the general election and wanted to stuff the House of Lords with new peers to have a bigger chance of passing the third Irish Home Rule Bill. The King said, "Oh no, you don't, not unless there is a second general election with this as your manifesto." So while the King did not dissolve Parliament directly, he forced a new election. The other option would be to, at the very least, get the approval of the Prime Minister to dissolve Parliament. The King does not need the approval of everybody in government. But if the Prime Minister, even against Parliament or government, approaches the King and he supports the King in dissolving Parliament, it can happen without repercussions. The situation in Britain, in my opinion, is currently on knife's edge, with or without the interference of the King. I think we have all heard rumours of civil war, although I sincerely doubt that that would happen, because British citizens have effectively been disarmed over the years. Although, having lived in Africa, a certain type of warfare which does not necessarily involve guns on both sides is very familiar to me. But anyway, this is YouTube, so we're not going to talk about that any further. Okay. Anyway, civil war in Britain does not sound very feasible to me and not very likely. But there definitely will be continued civil unrest until certain matters are resolved. In my opinion, the biggest issue in Britain is currently the number of illegal migrants entering the country. It influences taxes, the crime rate, public health services, and much, much more. To illustrate this, let's look at some statistics. From January to September 2024, Germany deported 17,600 illegals. France deported 22,000 in 2024, and Britain deported only 8,164 in 2024. Now fine, compared to, say, Germany, it is proportionate to the number of illegal immigrants who entered the country in 2024. 21% for Germany and 22% for the United Kingdom. But that is not the only statistic one has to keep in mind. Britain is more than 100,000 square kilometers smaller than Germany. And if you want to allow the people from each little boat to get off and enter your country, you better make sure you have the space and resources to accommodate them. Plus, you should find the following statistic very scary and worrying. In 2001, 87.5% of British citizens were classified ethnic white British or English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, or then British, i.e. natives of the United Kingdom. 10 years later, in 2011, it dwindled to 80.5%, a whole 7% less. And another 10 years later, in 2021, it further decreased to 74.4%. In 2021, only 36.8% of London's population were ethnically native British, English, Welsh, etc. So, of course, I'm not a political analyst or anything else of that sort. But you do not have to be a genius to see where this is heading. And in reality, it is no longer about skin color or even, say, religion or sex, but about culture. And it is obvious that British culture is declining at a rapid rate. People I know, for instance, and that's got nothing to do with culture, but more with services, can only get an appointment with a doctor in 6 to 8 weeks. Now, in certain circumstances, 6 to 8 weeks' time, you can either be healed or you can be dead. I mean, really. So, services are declining. Housing and other living costs are totally out of whack. Homelessness, unemployment will get gradually worse as this continues. Now, if this trajectory continues, then in 2031, the number of the native population would be more or less 67%. Now, does that sound good to you? I'm sorry, my friends, it does not sound good to me. Police recorded crimes for England and Wales for the year ending March 2014 as being 3.5 million. In the year ending March 2024, in other words 10 years later, it was 6.7 million, nearly double. I don't know what to tell you. All I can do is give my opinion, and it is my opinion that someone should take the lead to save Britain, and it could just as well be Charles. He has always been political. He is not a young man, and he is sick, so the risk to himself is minimal. Of course, the risk to the monarchy is much bigger, but the risk to the country, in my opinion, is the biggest. The situation cannot continue. Even the budget proposed by the finance minister is designed to put the average Joe under even more pressure. How much longer Britain can endure all of this, I'm not sure. But what is the use of a monarchy if it cannot act, at least on behalf of its people? My opinion is that King Charles will not do anything. He will put his head in the sand, ignore it all, and go hide at Balmoral or Sandringham from time to time. We know where King Charles's sentiments lie, and that he has a soft spot for Islam. So it is my guess that if the people do not come up with something, it will all be lost in, say, 20 years' time. Phew, what a depressing idea. But my friends, hopefully all goes well. God is there, up there, looking after me for the next few days. I'll be back with some more uplifting stuff soon. So until then, please take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye.